beautiful day on the Waitemata Harbour, the Hauraki Golf, a summer's day in Auckland, New Zealand. And this will be the first race of 4 today. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli against Emirates Team UK.
All right, here we go, guys. The course is clear. The breeze is nice, 12 knots. Both boats been foiling for the last 5 minutes as we've been watching them do pre-start maneuver practice, time on distance. You know, the teams have probably enjoyed this bit of time to really just, you know, keep working on their boat. The RMS sounds like it's working now, so they're going to have the software working. So we should be in for a good race.
Confirmation, it will be a 6-leg race. Confirmation 6-leg race, considering we are now a little bit an hour over the original start time, which was to be 3:12 local time, and it's now 16, almost 16:16 local time. Should I say 4:16? I was looking at the 24-hour clock. My apologies.
So as a sailor right now, you're thinking they might be thinking just of a one-race day here. I mean, you got right. I mean, you got to start putting yourself in the brain of Ian Murray and see what he's thinking from a time standpoint. Whether he's already just said, we may not get this second race off, so we'll do a nice long one for race number 1.
I guess at the end of the day, all that matters is you focus on the race right in front of you. Try and get the win, and when the race is over, someone in that big team of yours is going to come in and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey guys, that's it for the day, or get ready for another one.
Which makes the second race between Emirates Team New Zealand and American Magic an absolute stonker.
Yeah.
That one, if we go to a one-race day, that will decide, quite simply, who wins the Prada America's Cup World Series and gets #1 seeding for tomorrow's Christmas race.
No question about that. And again, I think this breeze strength coming up during the delay is probably giving the Americans a little more confidence. They just simply like their boat better in a breeze.
So there is the course set. They have moved the course north. It's a mix, Kenny, right? It's a mix of courses A and B.
Yeah, it's out there, and this is the Hauraki Gulf. We're setting it's much more spread out. You get away from that stadium setting where the people up on North Head and other places are out watching the races. So you got to be on a boat to watch the race here today, or with us.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, they have port entry. They are allowed into the box. And 2 minutes and 10 seconds. They came in early yesterday and got a penalty. It would appear, if the numbers are right, they will not be getting a penalty today as we click over 2:10 now. And Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli will make their entry into the start box. And Emirates Team UK will time their entry for 2 minutes. And they will do that comfortably well. So right now, it's the start of the pre-game maneuvers for race number 9.
Interesting that Ineos Team UK actually had to put their other board down to keep stable, keep out of the water, keep the hull out of the water because they were early. It wasn't because they were late. They were early. They had to slow down quite a bit.
Copy. Getting speed here. Okay, board down, 2, 1, board down. 1. Your wheel footage. Okay, 120 here, your pitch.
So very aggressive turn that one, but the boat sat on the foils, and with 1 minute 20 to go, big separation between the two teams right now. Wonder if Luna Rossa are going to come back and have a go at him here on starboard tack.
Much bigger start box here today, so these boats feel a little more spread out. One of the reasons for sure yesterday there was so much kind of hand-to-hand combat is they were forced together by how small the starting line box was. This is a much bigger box today, so I think you're probably going to see a little more time and distance and maybe a little less aggressiveness.
45 seconds to go to the start of race number 9. Who will have the upper hand?
What's he doing? He's taking on the breeze, taking on the breeze. On the breeze.
Yes, safe.
Okay, we're almost racing again.
We go for a slingshot. Nice, very nice separation here.
Slight starboard segment.
Yeah, it's burning.
Little
by the build here.
Pressure good to the left. Okay, just
here we go. Trigger. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
My pitch link. Canvas good. Okay, count out to 20.
Ready to trim.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop.
And they are away in race number 9. Strong starts by both Britannia and Luna Rossa.
Great time and distance, really, by both boats. In a way, Prada was a little early, but they had a nice gap to weather. It was fun to kind of sit back and listen to both teams talking about their tactics, talking about their approach. And let's face it, both of the time and distances to that starting line were exceptional in that start.
Yeah, no timing issues today from what we've seen so far. And big incident coming here on the boundary. Right now, you've got Luna Rossa to windward with the starboard tack advantage over Ineos Team UK. When they come out of this boundary, I expect Luna Rossa is going to do straight into a face tack here and really shut the race down pretty early on this race. And there you have it, straight on top of it. But maybe a touch too late. Ineos looked like they might sneak through to leeward. The apparent wind angles on these boats are so narrow that even though it looks like they'd be getting dirty air there right now, they've probably got clean air out in front.
For sure, Stephen, Ineos actually tacked and actually bore away a little further than normal, anticipating getting tacked on there and trying to get their air clear out on the right side or the leeward side of Luna Rossa. So that was actually tactically a very good move by Ben Ainsley to make sure they have clear air so they didn't have to pull into another tack right away. That would have been a disaster.
Both very, very smart helmsmen. Just remembering, of course, that Luna Rossa Prada probably have 2 helmsmen in the form of Jimmy Spidler and Francesco Bruni. So that's going to be a split tack. Shirley, you're on the water. What did you make of that start and how they are settling into this first leg?
I thought it was a pretty impressive start from the Italians. I mean, it's really key to get some separation between you and the boats lured, and they executed that really well. I've just been watching them on this speed as well, just gradually increasing the gap away from Ineos. To me, they look like they have the edge. Prada, they just have a little bit of extra speed and a little bit of extra height, which really helped them when they were close.
Yeah, Shirley, from our perspective here, it looked like the bottom speeds of the 2 boats are very different in the tacks. Looks like Luna Rossa were around 25 knots bottom speed in that tack, whereas Ineos Team UK were right down at 20 knots. And it's a long rebuild, you know, they're averaging 30 knots upwind in a straight line, but when you're dropping down to 10 knots below your peak speeds, it takes a long time to get back up there.
One thing for sure, though, they are much faster getting that weather board out today on all of these tacks. So that clearly was a focus at one stage.
Stand by. 3, 2,
and a loose cover by Luna Rossa. You know, we've seen all kinds of different tactical strategies by these boats, and instead of tacking right in front of Ineos Team UK, they spread it out a little bit and just kind of let the boat speed do its thing. They might see a little bit of a left-hand wind shift up on this side of the race course on the bottom of your screen, but certainly not the same tactics we saw the Americans use the last couple of days. Really tight hand-to-hand combat.
It's worth noting we're seeing channel markers all through this course, and that must be just another obstacle that they have to take into account, because it's not, you could say, a clean course in respect of that.
Well,
right?
they're also made out of steel or, you know, some form of metal. They win. Okay, in the collision, they win every time, 100% of the time against a light little carbon fiber toy.
Let us not remind ourselves of what almost happened to Emirates Team New Zealand yesterday, when there was a little bit of a communications breakdown between Glenn Ashby and Hamilton Peter Burling, and they got very, very close to a marker at the top gate. And Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli tacking to confirm their entry into the top gate and complete the first leg of 6 in this race 9 of the America's Cup World Series.
You're rounding the first part? Yeah, no problem. Your trucks, keep it going.
Yours?
Go.
Nice smooth rounding that one, wasn't it, Stephen?
It was almost flawless when you're looking at Francesco Bruni on that leeward side of the boat, just feel like staring around, boys. Let's go. Eh?
Bring you down slow here. Bearing away into
Be careful, Stephen. With all this terminology you're gaining about sailboat race, you're going to become a sailor if you're. You better be careful there, son.
Well, I would be lucky to have two boys like you beside me to tell me what the heck to do, but I know I'd be running along with you on the boat, Kenny. And she'd be an old school boat too, right?
Old school.
Old school boat, baby.
There's going to be a spinnaker on it, right, Nathan?
Back in the good old days when we had nylon spinnakers. Now the boats just turn downwind and you don't even know if they're going upwind or downwind.
Frankly, it's one, I have to admit, it's one of the things that the traditionalists, that the purists don't love about this style of sailing is it's hard to differentiate upwind from downwind, right? There's no changing of sails, there's no sails going up and down, but let's just look at how bloody fast they are, the excitement, how really I've found the youth that are getting into sailing, the young people are just getting so into foiling, so into speed at such a young age, and there's no question that this regatta is going to help continue to promote that.
I was speaking to someone the other day about how sailing is evolving, and the one word they said, foils. Simple as that. Nathan, you foil in your spare time, right?
This guy led the way over here. I mean, of anybody in the world, how many times you win the Moth Worlds?
2 Moth World titles. I started the Moth Worlds, started selling moths in 2008, quite a while ago. And the foil that you have here on one of these boats is just basically a scaled up version of what we had on the Moths 12 years ago.
616, 17, 20, it just keeps going up. The lead of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli over Ineos Team UK on the downwind leg number 2 of 6 in this 9th race. Important race too for Luna Rossa when it comes to points, if we are going to complete the full round robin today because of the delay in spectator craft not allowing us to get this race underway at 12 minutes past 3 local time. So they need this point.
Pressure. It's getting a little more now.
Then we're up on trap there for me.
Nice little letdown is, but gets us the ley line. We can help us.
Copy that.
Listening on board Britannia.
How's pressure let down the boundary?
We're just soaking down a little puff here. It's quite nice. I think.
Copy.
Try and ride it out.
Yeah, looking.
Nathan, the Italians are sailing like a boat that like a team that thinks they have a speed edge.
How's it back the other
way? And Britannia is sailing like a team searching for speed.
100% right. But the interesting thing is that whenever we look at the numbers when the boats are stationary, or not stationary, whenever the boats are on a leg, the speed numbers are almost identical. You know, they're around that 30 knots upwind, 33, 34 knots downwind. But I think it's the maneuvering and perhaps the angles that is really making the difference between these boats at the moment.
Trim main.
It looks like a good 1.5, 2 lengths left mark.
Copy that. Lot lighter here. Trim.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli heading towards the bottom gates for the first time and a sizable lead on Ineos Team UK over 500 metres.
One coming up. Big trim, boys. Big trim. Trim. Okay, good.
Not a lot of chat coming off board Luna Rossa today.
There's no pressure on them right now, so a quiet boat is always a boat that's comfortable, and they're certainly quite comfortable. Their maneuvers are beautiful. I mean, it's not a sailing term, but it does apply.
10 seconds, boys.
We said this yesterday in commentary, Kenny, that Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, splashed down by Ineos Team UK, splashed down.
There, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
I heard Ben say that.
And this is what takes a long time to get going again, and what will be interesting is how quickly they can get this thing back up in the air now.
Sheet seats. Copy, ease. Be patient here, guys. Okay. Bit of main on.
At some stage, you're going to have to make a choice. Do you go around through this gate just in the water at slow speeds, or do you risk kind of missing the gate while you're trying to do a speed build.
10 seconds, boys.
You guys see all the white water coming off the back of the rudder?
Yeah.
That's just complete loss of steerage, loss of grip. And boat basically just kept rounding up out of that jibe and going head to wind.
So the question for someone watching this, loss of grip, Nate?
Well, the steering wheel is connected to the rudder. That's what's driving the boat. And when you are middle of the jibe and you get air all over the rudder, you can't drive the boat. Here they go. They're getting up on the floor now. They've still got one more jibe to go here. They haven't made it down to the gate. So as Ken was posing the question, do you just plod along in the water or do you get it up and foiling and going again? And here they go rolling into another jibe.
I'm sure they'll analyze that, right? Because at one stage, you can see their wake. They splashed down about here. Are they faster just going slow speed down like that, or to try to get high speed, looping all the way back out and around and come back in?
Okay, 10 seconds to a turn up.
I can't tell you the answer to that.
The latter, it was suspect, as we see him do it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, stand by, 2,
And that lead has blown out as Ineos Team UK get around that bottom mark finally for the first time and hit up on leg 3.
Feels nasty.
We've had a course change out here, Stephen and Nathan. So instead of a 6-leg race finishing downwind, they're actually going to shorten the course and finish upwind a 5-leg race.
Very light, boys.
When you're ahead this far, it's probably a pretty good thing to hear. Shorten this race as short as you want at this stage if you're a fan of the Italians.
There are plenty of Italian fans that are at the viaduct in the America's Cup Race Village, and that just gives you an obvious indication of how far Luna Rossa are ahead of Ineos Team UK. Luna Rossa at the top right of your picture, and Ineos Team UK
Yeah, I don't want to go
after the splashdown
target at the moment, Pietro.
in a little bit of bother. So now 2 legs to go. So now a 5-leg race, not 6 legs.
Great graphics along the bottom, finding out the real numbers between the boats, and these numbers are coming straight off the boats. These are not numbers that we're just kind of making up or anticipating. And like you said, before that tack, Nathan, the speeds were really similar, or actually the Brits seem like they're a little quicker sometimes.
And then look at the VMG numbers. They're very similar too. Actually, Ineos Team UK's numbers are a little higher. I honestly think these guys, not necessarily that slow, but they're losing a lot every manoeuvre. And we saw one bad manoeuvre put the boat in the water, and it's a minute 30 loss.
I'm just a little concerned that spectator fleet is inside the boundary. And I was
They're
saying,
coming back. They're creeping
boys,
back
better
in.
tack in quickly, otherwise you're in trouble.
Steinmark. That's my word of the day.
You love that. Over 1,000 metres, almost 1,500 metres. We're heading towards the Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli in front of Ineos Team UK. Just a reminder, this is now a 5-leg race. It'll be an upwind finish.
If I was on one of those spectator boats, I'd be just edging in ever so slightly all day long, just trying to get a closer look.
He's part of the problem, Stephen, not the solution. He's part of the problem.
Here we thought we had a responsible colleague, and now he's showing just a tad of irresponsibility.
Well, I don't need to do it because I've got the best pitchers in the world sitting here next to you guys. But if I was on the water, I'd be in front row. I'd be just getting in there, and that's why I'm in here with you guys.
Remember, they're listening.
I know, I just realized. Okay, guys, don't listen to me. Just stay back, stay out of the way.
This will be really good. This will be really good data too for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, because light air, you want these things to fly in light air, don't you? And Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli want to be better in light air, don't they?
Remember, we talked earlier, we think they still have another set of foils to come. So these guys are just starting.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli heading towards the top gate for the penultimate time now, because it's turned into a 5-leg race, and they will finish upwind.
Pitch down.
So a quiet boat's a good boat.
No, you always hear that. There's no question. And it's just human nature when you're in tight. When you're in tight, when it's really close battle, that's when you know, you get amped up. The adrenaline's going, you're amped up. You're over communicating probably in that spot. In this spot, I mean, nothing against the British right now, but these guys are out just cruising around. There's no pressure. The only pressure is don't break your boat right now. That's how they lose the races. They break the boat.
I would love to go back and talk about this twin helming of Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, because we have seen yesterday and the way they jive there and the way they tack, it is a smooth operation. Do we think at this early point in this whole cycle that that is a subtle advantage going forward?
It definitely looks nice, doesn't it, when you're watching them sail around the track. They're working very well together, both Jimmy Spittle and Francesco Bruni. When they do the maneuvers, they only have one crew member crossing the boat. They're kind of an extension of each other. They have a lot of time and they're looking at driving the boat and performance numbers, and then they go down and the guy to leeward is flying the boat. Shirley, you're in the camera cat following them closely. What can you see with Luna Rossa and the way that Jimmy Spittle and Francesco Bruni are sailing that boat?
Nathan, we spoke about it yesterday, didn't we? It's really smooth in the manoeuvre. It's just this, you know, not crossing the boat and all that disruption and big, tall people, you know, getting in the wind. It looks really slick. I did speak to Jimmy about it last night at the press conference. He said the only downside is they only steer for half the time. So in terms of, you know, getting better at it, you know, it's slightly frustrating. You're only actually steering for half the day. But he's pretty happy to be sharing that role and learning from each other. I mean, two of the world's best helmsmen, you know, swapping ideas. What's not to like about that? You know, I have concerns perhaps in the heat of battle how that works, who makes the decisions and how you job share. But going in a straight line and executing perfect maneuvers, they're looking good.
Shirley Robinson, two-time Olympic gold medalist, best eyes on the water for the Prada 36th America's Cup, and this is the Prada America's Cup World Series as Luna Rossa extend their lead by a considerable margin. And it would appear that Ineos are struggling somewhat. I just wonder, Kenny, if the wind's just got a little bit lighter.
It's hard to, it makes you kind of cringe, right? Because you just don't want them in the water, because we've seen how hard it is for any of these boats to get out of the water, but certainly, especially for Ineos, stay up and out of the water. And it was, look at it, it's a 10 knot. I don't think they're really out of the water, but they're just on the edge. They all changed to a smaller jib. They might be regretting that move right now. Maybe they just got to start airing on a bigger sail. I don't know. There's a million reasons why, and as armchair sailors right now, it's easy for all of us to figure out that we have the right answers, but believe me, they got plenty of smart people that can try to figure this out. These guys are smooth. You know, they're just
coming up a little, just getting a little light spot.
We love it. We love to
charge here,
come out and have their conversation.
2, 1.
Look at the camber they put in the bottom of the mainsail coming out of that jibe. Remember, folks, it's not just the foils; it's the engine above the deck as well. And oh, these guys are struggling at slow speeds.
Ineos Team UK just limping around. Are they going to get around that mark?
Fastest mark. Yeah.
Must be getting lighter for this to be happening. You know, we saw the first lap didn't touch the water the entire lap. Shirley, how much has the breeze dropped for this to happen?
Yeah, Nathan, you're right. It has softened. It's probably sort of 8, 9 knots now, occasionally 10, but yeah, definitely decreasing. It's painful, isn't it, watching Ineos? I mean, something's just not right, whether it's hardware or the software mapping or what, but particularly in the maneuvers, they lose so much speed turning the boat. That's where it all goes wrong. And you said in a straight line they don't look too bad, but actually, you know, having to swap from side to side, it's really painful.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli now on their upwind finish leg. Leg 4, 5 of 5. And they're pretty much a full leg ahead of Ineos Team UK. And they have just run, you would be tempted to say, a flawless race.
It's no phrase any sailor ever wants to hear. They're a full leg ahead. You know, it's rare. We don't see it a lot, but that means we thought there might be some light air troubles for the Brits, and that is officially confirmed.
Well, Kenny, you're looking at the boat speeds here. 15 knots doesn't have you foiling, so Ineos Team UK are at the top marks, not foiling. You know, it's a tough thing to do to get the boat now up on the foils and start going downwind. Unless you're foiling, you don't go downwind in these boats at all. So they're going to need a puff of breeze pretty soon. Otherwise, they're going to be running out of room on the boundary.
Coming up a little bit.
And then they got to start all over again.
It's quite apparent. Look at those speed differences. Rossa 31 knots steady.
Was good.
And Ineos Team UK sitting around 20.5 knots.
Very cool. Twin skin mainsails. Those are two leeches of the mainsail in the back end there, and they're controlling each side of the skin off of this big D-sectioned mast. I can't wait to find out more about how these teams are doing. Of course, they're not going to tell us until the end of the campaign, but all of these teams have incredible control systems on how they can create camber, twist, ease, trim.
It would be worth noting, though, or talking about, too, guys, about the ability to control the mainsail and how much of an advantage that gives you in any race.
Oh, power control is critical, particularly as it gets lighter. There's so much going on these boats. You know, a typical soft sail is really difficult to make adjustments in terms of its depth and its draft position. And right now, these teams are allowed to adjust the bottom 1.5 meters of that sail. With the twin skins, they can get more depth in the bottom. You can see here, Ineos Team UK still not foiling, clearly struggling in this light air.
I think they just had a protest, I believe. We'll talk to Richard Slater in a minute, for a penalty because they probably went outside the boundary.
Yeah, well, you know, as I was saying before, unless you're foiling, you're not going to get going downwind.
GBR boundary penalty and cleared.
There you have it. Yeah, they ran out of room. They were trying to get it up on the foil, and by the time they probably got it up on the foil, hit the boundary, you have to jibe straight away. But what's impressing me right now is Luna Rossa don't even look close to coming off their foil in these maneuvers. They're just gliding through so nicely. Fast turn. Foil up very nice and exit. Look at that, super smooth.
Oh my goodness. Wow, what a difference.
So there's two things going on here. It's the foil sizes and the areas and the section shapes and how well they handle.
We're out here when we're talking about that foil size, and they don't have. And I notice here they don't have a bulb. They some of the foils have a big bulb there in the center, so they're putting the weight in the foil itself, the weight in the span and foil. These got to be maybe a little bit bigger foils than others. What do you think?
Well, you'd assume right now that they've got a bigger foil than Ineos Team UK, because the lighter it is and the slower you go, the more important is to have area. Area will give you that lift. But we need to get to the bottom of this and find...
Is that steel back here?
That looks like a steel...
Steel trim tabs.
Yep.
And exactly. Those trim tabs move up and down. And then these, this is the actual foil itself in the front. God, my drawing is getting so much better. Do you guys know that?
You are on point with your fingers.
You haven't given me a compliment on that.
You've been practicing, haven't you, all night long?
I've been coloring.
Take the computer home and you just keep practicing.
With your son, with your 2-year-old son.
It was crayon practice. There we go, Kenny. How about that? And look at this. In come Ineos team, Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. Heading towards the finish, which is now an upwind finish. They cut this race down by 1 leg. It was originally 6. It is now down to 5, and it'll be a dominant win by this magnificent machine, Luna Rossa, cruising it at some 28 knots to the finish line in race number 9 of the Prada America's Cup World Series. Another penalty to Ineos UK. Potentially that will be again another boundary penalty because they are just struggling, Kenny.
Yep. feel bad. Let's feel, you know, I can feel the frustration from here throughout their entire organization.
Luna Rosa, Prada Pirelli wins race number 9 of the Prada America's Cup World Series, and will be, let's be blunt, an enormous margin as they cross the finish line
The umpires,
on the
boundary penalty,
Waitemata Harbour.
JBR, penalty complete.
Good boys, 5 seconds.
And the fans, you can understand, are overjoyed.
1, 2, got it.
Nice race.
So that's the finish of the race, and they got to get back down to the other end of this of the racetrack anyway to start their next race, whenever that's going to happen. So they're just sailing along and go for a nice cruise, get a little more data.
Emirates Team New Zealand, American Magic. This is the race committee. We intend to start your race at 16:55, course 6.
So 55, they are going to start in 10 minutes.
Emirates Team New Zealand on your screen. They are the next race up in a big old showdown. Let's make this quite clear. Both Emirates Team New Zealand and American Magic Patriot are on 3 points in this America's Cup World Series. 16:55, 4:55, 4:55 will be official start time of race number 10.
And really, they just need to get Ineos is still racing, and they have all the right in the world to race. Again, let's get data. Let's try to get better. Let's try to figure this thing out. Once they get around this leeward gate and start heading back upwind, then in essence the course clears for these other 2 boats, and we can consider starting to get their race underway.
Days of ups and downs for Ineos Team UK. Nathan, great day yesterday, so positive, and today just you know, like another roadblock on the road moving forward, but they can get around.
Well, yesterday was a big step forward in their control systems. Today, you know, maybe a little bit of a snap back to reality. You know, okay, yep, boat's working fine, but we're not quick enough. And Ben's been really upfront about this the whole time. He knows they have some weaknesses in the light air, and I think that became apparent probably in the last couple of weeks. And that was never going to get fixed for any of this racing today. The real question is what do they have up their sleeve to get the boat on pace come January?
He said more components are coming in their press conference. We've got more components coming, but they know they're not as quick as everybody else.
Well, all I can hope is that these aren't their race foils, and the new components that are coming is something that's performing better in the lighter winds and allowing them to maneuver better. And I really hope they have some new sails coming that they can manipulate through the range and generate more power.
Magic potion. You're looking for a magic potion out there right now?
We all have been, listen, we've all been here in tough spots, and magic potion, you always dream of it, but the reality is it's a lot of little things typically.
Ben Ainsley at the wheel.
Luna Rossa. It's the race committee. In case you missed it, your race was finished at the windward mark. Happy for you to retire from the race course as we're trying to start straight away.
Voice of Ian Murray, the race director, saying, hey, Luna Rossa, just to let you know.
Heading off the course now.
Just to let you know, you finished. Get out of the way.
Race committee, this is American Magic.
Yep. 2, 1,
American Magic.
Yeah, Ian, have you seen a race course yet?
So Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli win race number 9 against Ineos Team UK by, we don't know what the official margin is, we can just simply say plenty as we get ready for the big showdown. 3 wins apiece, Emirates Team New Zealand and American Magic.
Nice pressure on the bow.
The gap was 12 seconds at the top gate. At the bottom gate, it's 3.
First time we've seen American Magic get eaten up a little bit downwind, but I think that was as much a wind shift, Shirley, as anything. That the Kiwis got a nice little shift on their side of the course coming into that mark.
Yeah, I agree, Kenny. They did very well in the second half of that leg.
You know, Nathan, in a way, this was all set up by that very first tack that American Magic put on top of the Kiwis by not just going right smack in front of them and forcing them to attack right away. It allowed the whole race course right now kind of to be set up by early in the race. Here we are late in the race, and the splits are allowed to happen because of one little thing that happened early on in the race.
Well, here we go, another opportunity for them to right the wrongs and get back in phase here and really hurt the Kiwis.
5 lengths. You'll see him in 7.
Twice as much.
He's easy cross. Going nicely, but that's just the phase. Has already hit this? That's just what we do then.
Hit him?
It's carrying on at the moment.
Too late.
So Dean Barker decides to keep going. I think talked about it and then realized it was too late. You do a rush tack at that moment, you're at risk of the other boat. Either you do a bad tack and you fall off the foils, or the other boat can punch through to leeward and take the starboard tack advantage. Now the boats are still out of phase. It's all about shift phase now. If the wind starts to go to the left, American Magic are going to make the gain. If the wind starts to shift to the right, Team New Zealand are going to make the gain.
I guess worst case we dip them, you know,
I think both boats like the right-hand side of the race course. They're already thinking that they might be behind on this next, which I find hard to believe. It looks like a fair lead right now, but I think they like the right side of the race course.
This is right banana, but probably going to go below green here. Speed build.
Voice of Dean Barker on board American Magic.
Back into a little lefty now. I think we'll just pick up this pressure on the bow. And there we go.
Lefty means left-hand shift. That's good news for if you're an American fan right now. If we've got a left-hand shift on the course, high chance of making the cross out of this tack.
Kiwis look high up there, though. It's hard to judge.
Oh, Kenny, you heard Dean say there's a big banana, and I think that's right. There's a wind bend round that corner of the island, and to me the Kiwis have done very well by going right to the boundary.
You know, because of that, Shirley, I'm surprised they didn't tack. I'm surprised they didn't tack on them and keep that right-hand side.
What do you think? We're crossing. We're not. Okay, building now.
Could be a dial down here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I've got him.
Coming behind us is 5.
Coming up now.
It's the only option though, Andy.
So in the end, Emirates Team New Zealand decided the whole course, no dial down. Typically there you dial it down the port tack boat to increase your lead. Not sure why we have a protest coming up right now, but what this is setting up is both boats coming in opposite tacks at the top mark. Going to be a split, potentially boats coming in overlapped. If both boats make it to ley line from here, we're definitely in for a split at the top mark. Same thing happens on the downwind.
It's got 20 to lay. It's a little more visually.
Emirates Team New Zealand heading towards that top gate to complete leg 3 of 6.
10 to ley line.
The lead's been pretty stable by American Magic for the majority of this leg at around 80 to 100 meters.
Up until here. And I honestly have no idea why American Magic protested there. I can't even speculate. I have no idea. You look at the straight line. That straight line of the Kiwis right there, they didn't even try to bear down and as Nathan said, dial down the Americans.
Oh, soft in that corner, isn't it?
Well, you've got to sort this out.
Voice of Dean Barker not happy. Not happy at all, is he? We've got to sort this out. We didn't see what happened there. Maybe we'll get a replay later on.
Splashdown American Magic lead change on leg 3, the completion of leg 3 and race number 10, the big race. Emirates Team New Zealand go to the front.
don't think American Magic are up and going here again. 25, 26 knots. They must be close to falling, but it's amazing one bad tack and what can happen in the race.
2, 1, down. Turning. No lower.
Well, as a fan of good, tight boat racing, that's a shame. And unfortunately, again, we're working out all of our bugs here. Unfortunately, the cameras on board American Magic aren't working at this stage. So they're searching desperately for a way to see what happened during that splash, but unfortunately, we may not have it.
Well, Kenny, we might not have been able to see, but Shirley, you're on the water. Did you see what happened there?
I think they had some kind of manual issue. We were on the other side of the course with Emirates, so not a real clarity to add, but yeah, definitely they were you heard them on board very frustrated. You know, why is this happening again? We have to stop this happening. And I think there's some kind of manual failure.
It was the first sign of real frustration from Dean Barker we've heard in this whole regatta so far, as Emirates Team New Zealand start to pull away from American Magic. Their lead sitting now at over 580. It just keeps climbing. We know Terehotai is fast, but they got a bit of a break.
They got a break. There's no question now. They had ground them down. They were in a pretty good spot. Whether they were going to, with a good tack by American Magic, were they going to cross or not? Unfortunately, we'll never know. Tight sailboat race here, though, Nathan. Nobody had a massive speed edge one way or the other here right now. Tight boat race.
Yeah, there was nothing in that race up until that moment. And unfortunately now, Dean Barker and the crew were just waiting for Team New Zealand to make some form of error to let them back into this race. And so it's disappointing for us. You know, we were having a great time coming in that, but I bet you it's more disappointing for them.
No question about it.
There must be encouraging signs for both these teams, though. Light air racing.
It's only 700 meters. We've seen stranger things happen. Again, and now it's a geometry game for Emirates Team New Zealand. They want to minimize their maneuvers going into the gate and try to pick the side coming out of the gate where they think the pressure is, because it is very apparent that it's kind of shifty, puffy out there again.
The one thing that's been apparent over the last 3 days of this Prada America's Cup World Series, all teams have work to do.
And they'll all be honest with you and tell you exactly the same. That's exactly correct.
They just won't tell us what they need to do.
Not ever in a million years.
Oh, to be a mole inside one of these teams that have a little bit of more insight as to what's really going on. But it is.
We'll work it. That's what we got Nathan for. He's current with all these guys. He'll be in there. They don't even know he's going to be sweet talking them, and before you know it, they'll be spilling their guts.
Yeah, but if they've watched any of the commentary, they'll know that I'll spill it to the whole world. So good luck getting any information now. I've had years to get information and no one will tell me a thing. And these teams are top secret. They don't share any information to anybody.
Such is the intrigue of the America's Cup. Emirates Team New Zealand. Bottom gate, still 2 legs to go. And their lead is sizable on American Magic in the key race of this World Series.
All good.
The one thing I'm noticing is on that downwind, no one was really going to the western side of the course. They're all jibing and keeping closer to all those spectators on the eastern side. The wind must be just flowing over Rangitoto Island. You can see where Emirates Team New Zealand are going now. Slowly, I think it must be just lighter on that left-hand side of the course, because otherwise you'd just be going boundary, jibing and minimising manoeuvres. So they must think it's worth the extra jibe.
So another example of one small error in these big AC75 falling monohulls can cost you distance and the result as American Magic comes into the gate.
56 seconds. It was 55 at the top. So aside of that one error that we saw, or that one problem they had in that tack, boats are going very similar speeds around this race course. And I guess what the teams will be doing now is they'll be collecting the data. They'll be looking at their boat around the track. They'll be trying to work out, okay, all they can probably really do at this point is time the deltas between the two boats and think, if only we didn't have that error.
I may sound like I'm harping on about light here, but Nathan, we've had a discussion before as well with Kenny about in February, March, in this particular area, the winds do get lighter, do they not?
Generally, yes. As the summer starts to heat up here in Auckland, the sea breezes get a little bit lighter. You know, the hotter days draw these lighter sea breezes, and today's a typical summer's day. When the teams were training here in August, September, October, in the lead up to this, you have a lot of southwest wind patterns coming straight from the bottom of Australia, coming through, blowing 20, 25 knots and 15 degrees. Now summer's turning it on, and this is a real taste of what we're going to see over the coming months.
So the data you will generate and grab from these races, particularly these light airs, is gold if you are doing it okay.
Oh, this is gold. Even if you're not doing it okay, you just want to get the data of how your boat's performing in this, what is it, 8 to 10 knots out there. You're refining your maneuvers. You're refining your sail selection and how you're setting up not just the jibs, which jibs you pick, but what kind of depths you want to use on the sails. There's lots of technical stuff going on that all the boffins in the team will be sitting there analysing all race long.
I think I'd rather be the guy doing it okay at this point in my development going forward, not the guy that's not done okay.
Well, you'd want to be the team that everyone's chasing, right? You never want to be that team that is trying to pull back that distance, because every team is going to improve, but if they all improve at the same rate,
you're in trouble. You know, the sail size thing, even these jibs on the two boats are quite different, but sail sizes, these are 145 square meter mainsails. Like I said before, twin skin mainsails, but then they have jib choices between 90 meters down to 150 meters. So massive differences in jib sizes and headsail sizes, that front sail on the boat. So plenty of choices to be made. You see fathead jibs, you know, big square-headed jibs. You see small little low-aspect pins. So a lot of different variations as to choices just in sails, never mind what these hydrofoils are actually going to look like and what they need to do.
And I guess, Ken, the sails is really the only thing that can change once they declare measurement for the racing. In Bermuda, we had 2 sets of foils. We had 4 foils at our disposal, and we could pick any combination. Whereas here, they have to pick it a week in advance and stick to that foil, which means when the designers are designing foils for the America's Cup, they've got to go through a full range of conditions. It's not just a light wind set and a strong wind set.
Yeah, that's a big difference, isn't it? You and I have talked about this a lot. The ability to pick your long-range weather forecasting in order to then choose your foils, it's huge. But the reality is, like you said, these foils are going to have to do everything. And you guys had, you chose by the day, right? What time of day would you actually choose?
Penultimate gate for Emirates Team New Zealand. Then they're on the homeward run. This time it will be a downwind finish. The earlier race was upwind finish because we had a late start, but this one is on time and around they go, heading towards the finish.
Well, Ken, back to your point on the time we were choosing foils in Bermuda. It was early in the morning. 6 a.m. I think was roughly the call we had to get the foils in the boat. And so that's up at 5:30 for a weather briefing, work out what the forecast is for that 2-hour race window for the day. Shore team would roll in, put the foils in, and away you go. Whereas these guys they're picking it not just weeks in advance, they're picking it months in advance when they confirm the foil design.
You've got to get it right.
You've just got to get it right.
There's a little luck involved there, though. Obviously, there's going to be a little luck involved, but it is an all-purpose foil that they're going to have to end up choosing.
American Magic for the final time at the top gate.
Just get settled and then
chasing
straight away.
Emirates Team New Zealand. After splashing down earlier in the race, it has cost them dearly. And now it's blown out to over a minute behind.
Standing by. 2, 1, port down.
Ken, did you notice that when they dropped that windward foil down into the water, the boat's attitude didn't change at all?
But that's got to be some sort of soft. I mean, that's incredible how smooth. Now, but I also noticed these guys upwind during all their tacks in the first leg, they did a little wheelie each time. So as smooth as that, probably the flap on the back end of the hydrofoil, that flap on the back end has to be probably at a perfect tilt as it hits the water, right? I thought they were a little out of kilter going upwind on the first leg, American Magic.
I think the other thing we've got to remember is it's not just the flaps on the foils that you've got to preset to get to the correct angle for the drop. You've got to get that angle spot on for the speed at which the boat's going, but also at the pitch angle at which the boat's sailing at. So you adjust the pitch of these boats by adjusting the rudder angle. If you change the rudder angle and add more lift at the back, it drives the boat more nose down. If you take the rudder lift out, it lifts the bow up. It's very three-dimensional, these boats.
So in really simplistic terms, could I use the outboard motor example of a pitch on an outboard motor, the which way you get it out of the water and then smooth it out and plane it?
Sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it makes sense. You tilt the engine on the back of your fishing boat. When you get some speed, you tilt it up, you lift the nose, you reduce the drag, and off you go. It's the same analogy, but what the rudder's really doing is if you add the rudder lift, it changes the angle of attack of that leeward foil in the water. So you've got the front part of the foil that's fixed, you change the angle of attack of the boat, the foil changes with it, and you're just tweaking it with the flap on the back of it. So it's a bit different to what we had in Bermuda, where we would rake the whole foil, which would change the lift. These guys are just doing fine-tuning of the rudder and fine-tuning on the flaps.
Emirates Team New Zealand with almost a 1,000-metre lead on American Magic, and this is a monster win in the scale of things. When we talk about winning this Prada America's Cup World Series, they only need one more win. That's all they need as they cross the finish line. Emirates Team New Zealand do the job on American Magic. Now all they have to do is beat Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli in the final race, and the World Series is theirs.
Heavy board out. Scott.
You know, they'll be happy with the win, Nathan, but I think they'd like that starting sequence back. As the boat's starting all the way down to the left-hand or pin end of the starting line, and you're giving your competitor that sort of gap, it's really hard to ever survive that. And it's just not a place you want to be. So I think Emirates Team New Zealand would like to have that starting sequence back and start up a little closer to American Magic to kind of control the game a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll have one more chance to have another go to pre-start today against Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, assuming the racing all continues on schedule. And that will be the message from the coach. Boys, win the start.
American Magic coming to the finish of race number 10. It's one you might say early on they were looking strong in, and one splashdown, one small mistake has cost them a point. And they've got to think now as they cross the line, they've got to turn around in the blink of an eye and face up to Ineos Team UK in race 11, and I'm talking minutes.
You heard Dean Barker say, "Nice effort, boys, good upbeat," and then he said, "It's just very frustrating."
Actually, no, we don't need to start off here next. Yeah, no, sorry,
I'm guessing
dropping it
get a little
sorry.
glitch.
My bad.
Dean Barker saying, "No, boys, we can't sail off. We're going to turn around. My bad. We're going to race. So let's turn this thing around and get back ready for pre-start." Confirmation of the result of race number 10. Emirates Team New Zealand with the win on American Magic with a 1 minute and 19-second advantage. 5 minutes and 17 seconds and counting to the start of race number 11. It will be Ineos Team UK, Britannia against Patriot from American Magic. American Magic turning around after their 1 minute and 13-second loss just basically moments ago against Emirates Team New Zealand. Shirley Robertson's on the water for us, the best eyes on the water. It's going to be another interesting battle to see how Dean Barker responds from that slight mistake which cost him so much, Shirley.
Well, I bet we feel slightly robbed in that race, and I bet he does as well. You know, they're going well, aren't they? They're starting great, real good execution, and they're fast. So, you know, he'll want to put on a good showing in this race. Slightly lighter conditions, it's just fading as we go into the evening here in Auckland, but still very much to me looks like it's right-hand side dominant, and I think we can expect to see that strategy play a part in their pre-race strategy.
Just a quick update to wherever you are watching this around the world that we will be staying with the racing. There are still 2 more races to go till 7 o'clock local time, so we can find out who does win this Prada America's Cup World Series. And right now in the box seat are Emirates Team New Zealand with 4 points ahead of the 3 points owned by American Magic and Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. So it is going to come down to the last race, and that's what you want in any sport, in any racing. And here's hoping that Britannia, Rita, highlighted in red, the name that Sir Ben Ainsley has named all his Olympic yachts, handles the light air a lot better this time around.
Let's hope. I mean, the two storylines right now are improvement for the Brits, and can they keep the boat out of the water and going in this light air? They got a bigger jib up, that's for sure, this time around. But the second storyline is the quick turnaround. Imagine the short teams piling onto American Magic to get it prepped, batteries charged, all kinds of, you know, all the checks that they need to do to make sure that that boat's ready to go for a second race in such a really short turnaround time.
2 minutes and 50 and counting to the port entry, which will be Ineos Team UK. The port entry boats are allowed in at 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and then 2 minutes American Magic Patriot will come in from the starboard entry.
This seems to be a trend. They keep these boards down a long time to try to slow the boat down a bit. Don't come off your foil.
Okay, coming away. Hard down.
Just confirmation too, this will be a 5-leg race, so it will be an upwind finish.
Powering up. Go low at 5. You go. Coming up.
Chances over that line and in early. Yep, penalty. Missed by about a half a length, and you could hear Ben say, oh, geez, and there's a starboard tacker coming his way.
Yeah, this is not shaping up well at all for Ineos Team UK. He's going to have to almost jibe to get in from that position. And it all stems back to what happened probably a minute before the start, where they placed that jibe as they're coming in on entry. I remember listening, hearing their chat, and they said it might be a little bit early here. That's when you glide on the 4 boards or the 3 boards down. And here they are now off the foils.
Have an early entry penalty.
Off the foil right away.
So a penalty and off the foils. Not the greatest of pre-starts, and the breeze is dying out there.
Quickest question, how do you erase the penalty?
Well, after the start, they're going to have to drop back. Is it 2 boat lengths behind American Magic after the start? So on the course side of the starting line, but that's going to be easy to do. Drop back that 2 boat lengths if you're not up in the foils. That's going to happen in a second.
Further question, can you erase it before the start?
No.
Well, the other thing you can do is you can offset it against the other boat. We saw yesterday that Jimmy Spittle got very aggressive when he got an early entry penalty. He attacked Dean Barker and tried to get the penalty erased. So if Ben can here, he's now on starboard tack, he could go after American Magic and try and offset the penalty so they both start with no penalties.
23s.
Little over 30 seconds to the start of race number 11. 2 races to go in this 12-race Prada America's Cup World Series. Just think of it, 12 races in 72 hours. How good is that? But Ineos Team UK sitting with that penalty on them for early entry. 5 legs of racing. American Magic need this win to pressure Emirates Team New Zealand to get a result against Luna Rossa in the last race. Here we go.
No problem on him. 2, 1, mix him up, mix him up.
It's interesting that Giles Scott was steering the boat in that pre-start. Ben was to leeward. Now they've swapped out.
They must try and
This
stick
is
to
the
their
umpires.
sides. in the
GBR,
pre-start.
GBR, you still have a penalty.
And what do you think,
Don't
Nathan?
worry about that, Richard. It'll come off soon enough, mate.
Oh.
Okay, for all of you at home, that was the voice of Richard Slater, our chief umpire, telling Ineos that they had a penalty. And then Ben Ainsley came on and said, don't worry, Richard, that penalty's going to come off soon enough, mate.
Touch and go here, guys.
Sure enough, they dropped right in behind.
That's got to be frustrating when you already know that the penalty's just going to disappear. Pretty much the moment you do your first tack, they're struggling to foil. They're almost foiling. No, I don't think they're going to take off there. And you can see their speed, 15 knots. They still have the penalty.
Yep, thanks, JBR. Penalty clear.
That's going to be clear, yeah. There you go, penalty clear now. American Magic make the foiling tack and are going to just disappear into the distance right now.
Oh, my goodness.
Onto the water with Shirley Robertson. What do you make of this, Shirley?
Oh, it's hard to watch, isn't it, Stephen? I mean, you know, I mean, we're all well aware of tens of thousands of man-hours of design, of blood, sweat and tears to get to this point. It's really difficult to watch. And, you know, Ineos have a lot to do if they're going to get it together by the Prada Cup. This is difficult. I mean, what is it, Nathan, looking at it? I mean, is there anything that just sort of jumps out that's not right?
Well, to me, it looks like for the same amount of boat speed, they can't produce the same amount of lift on their foils. So when you exit attack, and both boats there were doing low 20s, American Magic look like they're foiling just fine. So maybe the Ineos foils, either the area of the foil is less, and so it's not creating enough lift, or the section of the foil or the flap range or something to do with the foils is just not creating enough lift at slow speeds. Once they're up doing 30 knots, the boat seems to be going just fine. It's just the bottom speeds, and that foil must be stalling. You know, these foils are really difficult to design and engineer, and you target the design for various different speeds, and they must have not targeted the lower end.
Again, that was just a straight line boat speed we just saw, and you know what? They appear to be going just fine. UK 27 knots, USA 26 knots. This is the common theme. Fine in a straight line and tough when you got to turn.
American Magic with that 380-odd metre lead on Team Ineos UK in race 11 of the Prada America's Cup World Series. And the constant theme with Ineos Team UK at the moment, at least today, is just getting up in those foils and light air. You've heard Nathan Aldridge, who is our foiling aficionado, talk about maybe the foils aren't right. I suppose the other question is that combined with the foils, then you've got to think about whether you got your sail combinations right.
Oh, no question. And again, I think the systems that these teams are using to control, especially that twin skin mainsail design and setup, which is brand new to the sport of sailing, by the way. The teams that can load them up the best, that can really create depth when you need the lift at slow speeds, that can create lots of depth in those sails, seem to be staying up on the foil a little bit longer. So it's so simple to say from here that it's just one thing, but unfortunately it's a combination of so many variables.
Absolutely, it's a combination of so many variables. We're just talking about two things. We're talking about foils and sails, but there's plenty more going on than that.
American Magic approaching the top mark for the first time. Remember, this will be the finish at the end of 5 legs, an upwind finish. And they look as smooth as silk. They'll want a clean run this time round.
Small build in 3. On the boxes in 25 seconds.
Nice bit of spray off that foil, wasn't there?
60% anytime.
Did he say 60%?
60%
of the time, every time?
He was speaking British, so I'm not sure I'm the best. You guys might be better.
Shirley, what was Goody trying to explain to the world right there?
Well, Paul Goodison's from Rotherham in the north of England. It's a whole different kind of British. He said 60% anytime, I think with a slight hint of sarcasm, like he needed, you know, he needed power or he needed something and he wanted it. You know, when they got round to it.
Speed it up a little bit. Coming up a bit, that's good there. Okay, bearing away, 2, 1, okay, down. Yours?
Yeah, my wheel. Okay, building here.
Nice there.
Ineos Team UK get that mark. It's around a minute behind American Magic, and away they go down on the second leg, the downwind leg. Leg 2 of 5. Back on the wheel of Sabine Ainsley.
You know, we haven't even talked about the hull shapes too, guys. You know, we talked about the foils, the foil above the deck and the foil below the water line, but we haven't talked about the hull shapes. And you know, maybe this hull shape, this unbelievably unconventional hull shape, is draggy in those low speeds. You know, it could be something as simple as that. I wouldn't even know where to start with regards to looking at a boat like this, because frankly, none of us have ever seen boats like this before. But it is different. It's very different from the rest of the fleet.
Well, Ken, we've got probably the duration of this race to talk and come up with some theories. To me, if the boat's in the air, then that under hull shape is not really going to be particularly draggy unless you start talking about aerodynamics. But for sure, if the boat's in the water and they've said hard to take off, maybe that square, long, I guess, fin or old-style skeg is too draggy to help generate enough speed for the foil to then engage and lift the boat out of the water. We can talk for hours, but I'm sure there's some clever designers who really know the answers.
But for the basic viewers watching around the world at the America's Cup Race Village, the simple principle is that the lower you are out of the water, but you stay dry, you don't touch the water, is simply for aero to cut out any wash.
It's essentially, it's lengthening the sail plan right down to the water. If you think of it, it's adding power to the entire sail plan. So these boats are trying to fly low without, as Nathan said on day one, don't stick it in the water, because that creates more hydro drag. You're just trying to kiss the top of the water and, in essence, lengthen the sail plan, make the sails that much bigger and more powerful.
Every team has these long skegs along the bottom of the boat. You're looking here at American Magic. They have it at the front and sort of goes through the middle and then it tapers right up, but their skeg is really sharp. It's really pointy on the underside. And to me, it looks like if the boat ever touches, which you see just every now and then, it's not very draggy. It's just a little touch in and out. The spray that comes off it is nothing, whereas Ineos Team UK look like it's almost half a metre wide and it's flat, and so it bounces off the water with significant amounts of drag.
Slick package here right now, and in the lighter air, they have to be really, really psyched, because you know we were speculating, and that's our job. We were speculating at the beginning of the broadcast as this lighter air may not be to their liking, but they don't even have their biggest jib on right now, and we saw them hang right in there with Emirates Team New Zealand in that last race, except for one small error. And they obviously look good in this race.
American Magic, they go around the gate.
Nice there.
And head up on leg number 3 of 5. That was the bottom gate, the downwind gate. Now they're going back upwind. And their advantage on Ineos Team UK is sizable. But despite that, it makes a pretty picture, doesn't it? Summer's day in Auckland City.
A lot of boats out there today watching, and hello to Auckland, and thank you for being our hosts here. We love being here right now. It's just an amazing place to sail.
Okay, 2, 1, board down and turning.
nice and smooth. But
not a bad job. That weather, boy, look at the amount of depth they're creating down low in that sail right now. Almost like
Might have the two-board soak. Here we go.
Might have the two-board soak, he says. That's that.
We got it.
Okay, should get there.
Very late on the camber.
Stand by turn up, sharp one here.
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Bottom mark running by Ineos Team UK. They're in deficit 1 minute and 15 seconds to American Magic as they start leg number 3 of 5.
There's always better pressure, huh?
Okay, keep the speed here for this next tack. 135. It's a little bit lighter this way.
One thing that's worth picking up purely from a novice's angle, Nathan, is they
setting up for attack, guys.
When you look from the stern end, the boats slide. They slide.
They do slide. They have what we call leeway and sometimes negative leeway. And that's caused by the fact that the foil on the underside is lifting, but they can adjust the cant. So the more they lift that foil up to leeward and keep bringing it closer to the surface, instead of the foil lifting the boat in a vertical plane, it's actually pushing the boat to windward. So what you can see here with these camera angles behind is the traveller on the main sheet's a long way down, and that's because the boat is actually crabbing sideways into the wind. Normally you'd have the main sheet a bit more on the center line and the boat would be, say, having 0 leeway. But they can adjust the leeway they want to have on the boat by just changing the angles of their foil.
Can I say how deceiving that was? They're doing 30 knots.
Yeah, that's what we were saying earlier. We're becoming numb to it a little early in the piece. So we have to keep remembering what we're seeing, the G-forces, the skill that it takes to sail these things. That's the problem. These sailors all make it too easy after a while, and we become a little numb to the whole process. And we got to keep respecting it, that's for sure. Win or lose, these sailors are taming wild beasts that have never been created before, never been sailed before, nothing like them.
Well, there are two battles going on, aren't there? There's the crews against their own boat to, as you say, Kenny, tame it, and then there's a battle against their opponent.
And those poor guys just grinding away, providing all the power, all the sail controls are being controlled by all those guys in the grinders, and then they rely on really intricate hydraulic battery-powered systems to move those massive boards around.
My wheel. Okay, your shot? Yeah, pressing. Right. Speed's coming.
The full-size jib is certainly helping them. They haven't had that kind of tragic end to the race that they had in the first time.
This is the umpires. USA boundary penalty, USA boundary penalty.
So these guys went over the boundary. We don't see the boundary on our screen right now, but they went over the boundary. They're going to have to slow down, take a little bit of a penalty. It's not like they have to go back behind the other boat, like off the starting line, but they have to slow down.
Cleared as you were speaking. How about
50 meters, is that?
Yeah, and it's obviously a difficult one to take because it's a 50-meter gain base or loss get off what? And so the umpires are like, okay, for the last period of time your boat's been going roughly this speed. They just draw an imaginary line and keep the boat going at that speed and say you're slowing down and you get behind. We'll go to a replay here of the incident.
Wow. Richard Slater is a mean guy, isn't he? I mean, they went over. I think the boxes on board the boat are. Richard, are you? Can you hear us? How far over the boundary did they actually go? If you can hear us, if you have a number. No, I don't think we have Richard.
You just insulted him. Of course he's not going to answer you.
Oh, I didn't.
I'm on now, Kenny.
Okay. Richard, how far over did they actually? Oh, was it actually the wing? Was it the foil that went over?
Wait one, we'll just go back and have a quick look.
We think it's the foil arm that actually went over the side, Richard, and we understand that it's something that is automatic. It's not speculative by you.
If you can see, Maybe bigger for you. No, we got the back of the boat as well. Foil arm back of the boat.
Keep going now.
Confirmation it was marginal, but it was a penalty, and it was cleared pretty quickly as American Magic head down on their penultimate leg, the downward leg. This will be an upwind finish at the top gate, but Ineos Team UK still a mile away. And look at them, they're off the fours. The speeds drop real quick as they attempt to get up to that top gate.
Shirley, going down to you on the water, is it getting lighter, or are these guys trying things to try and keep the boat foiling?
It is softening, Nathan, just as we go into the evening here. It's sort of 8, 9 knots. I mean, we're right behind the American boat here. I mean, very, very impressive. Actually, it just looks so smooth and always seem to have a you know, a little bit of power if they go into lull. You know, they look a class act. It's hard watching Ineos. This is the worst conditions for them. It really exaggerates and lets the world see the issues that they have. As the wind softens, it just gets harder and harder for them.
1,384, 5 meters is the lead between American Magic and Ineos Team UK.
2, 1 more down.
They make a heck of a lot of noise. You hear that whistling off American Magic. Where's that whistling coming from? Someone said that they had been on board. It said they reminded them of a Star Wars movie and the Speeders, and the noise the Speeders made in one of the early Star Wars movies.
Well, I had one of the engineers off of American Magic explain to me what all these noises were last night, and he used words I've never heard before, and frankly, I may be more confused now than when before.
Broadcastable words?
Oh, yeah, fully broadcastable words. But
well, let's hear it. Come on.
I literally had to write it down. I'm gonna have to go back in and find it. No, I just mean really, it's the complexity of what is inside these boats in order to get this stuff up and down. It was a new vocabulary. I've been doing this for a while, and I had never heard anything like what he was explaining to me. We'll figure it out. We'll get it to everybody sooner or later. We've still got 3 months to get into it. So I didn't do a great job with it, I can tell you that.
Well, I guess the biggest, highest pitch whistling noise must be coming off those foils.
Oh, that's for sure, the foils.
But there's lots of other little noises going in the boat, like that ratchet sound and that cow sound. We'll get to the bottom and tell you what all those things are that are making those funny noises on board.
It's the cow sound that gets me, and that's going off American Magic yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah. We don't hear it as much today for some reason. I'm not so sure.
I wonder whether that has something to do with the amount of wind that they're saying.
Slow down. Copy.
He used phrases like pulse width modulation. And let's see. Even he had the name wrong to begin with.
2, 1, here we go.
American Magic going for a really nice jibe here. Sorry to interrupt, but very light there. It's looking marginal, just keeping it on the foil. And I like hearing the sound in the commentary booth because it gives you an indication of the speed. As the pitch of that noise changes, you can really draw your attention to how fast the boats are going. And if the pitch gets quieter, you know, oh, maybe they're about to fall off the foils, and as it winds up high, you know that Dean Barker's got that wheel shaking in his hands.
American Magic heading towards the bottom gate for the final time in race 11 of this America's Cup World Series. And this will win once they complete the run. Will keep them tie with Emirates Team New Zealand with 1 race to go, and that's Emirates Team New Zealand against Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. And here's the key: if the wind is lightning,
Looks okay at the moment this way.
how interesting is this last race going to be?
Well, Prada has made, in my view, Prada has made some great gains.
You had a
during
boundary
this
penalty
event.
and cleared.
Their maneuvers are smooth. Their speed looks better. Remember, the first race out, they lost by over 3 minutes to Emirates Team New Zealand. And now, you know, you got to put them right in the hunt with all of them. So I think they've made some really nice gains so far over the last 3 days. And
Finishing at the
you
bottom,
know, this is it. This is the race that's going to cost it.
At the top, okay.
See, not the perfect tack. They've had this problem a few times today where the bow pops up in the air like that. Kind of. That's a full touchdown right there.
Let's follow this and see how long it takes them to get back up and foiling and what techniques they're using.
Look at their bearing way off. Did not ease the mainsail hardly at all. Traveler all the way down. They just go into kind of a beam reach. This, I don't think, was done on purpose. They just had a bad tack.
And now they're just underpowered. Like, if you could, you'd trim the sails on, flap down, load the boat up, and take off. But
keep trimming on.
Here they go. We're listening on board. It's climbing.
Starting to get going. Come on, baby.
You're just wishing it to take off, aren't you? Oh, and it's in the water again.
He got greedy, Dean did. He turned up a little early there.
I wonder what angle they're doing. They must be doing about 90 true to get it up. Not going to the top mark, not going to the bottom mark, just going nowhere.
Yeah, it almost looked like they were going backwards on the race course.
Jeez, imagine if Ineos here pull off the next jibe and climb back into this race. You know, if American Magic can't get back up onto the foil, but Ineos managed to keep it onto the foil somehow, and we could have a boat race back on. I know it's wishful thinking.
The lead is dropping by the second.
How can it be wishful when the lead is dropping?
We knew it. We knew this was going to be a race.
Come on, time here.
Man, that hull is sticky. The foil will be flapped down. Water will be trying to cling to it, trying not to stall. It's almost out. Almost out. Here we go. And she's off. And she's going to do 10 knots faster in about 5 seconds. They kept very calm during that process, didn't they? A lot calmer than we were.
Well, it's like it's happened before. That's what it sounded like. It's happened before.
Well, we've not seen that up close before, have we?
For all the boats, I'm sure they're trying their hardest to figure out methods, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Probably a bit of a heart stopper for Dean Barker, considering in the last race it was one bad move and it cost them the race against Emirates Team New Zealand.
Surely breeze is just dropping more and more and more.
Oh, Kenny, those were our shots on the boat that I'm on when that happened. I mean, it's very dramatic. It's the first time we've seen it, literally, you know, 4 meters from their stern. I mean, I'm shocked. They were doing, you know, 100 and 115 degrees of the breeze.
So actually heading back towards the old gate. Yeah.
It's going the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, quite stunning. I mean, how dramatic. Well, that is a race, winner or loser. And it requires so much patience. And the finesse, I think, between pulling the sails in and, you know, getting the flaps going. It's not all there yet, is it? There's a long way to go.
Ineos came off the foils, and now they have to try to build speed again. And again, they're almost kind of going back upwind again in order to build foiling speed. Gonna have to do another jibe.
This was always the concern, I guess. The risk of these boats is that they're fantastic when they're foiling, but if they're not foiling, they're incredibly slow. And in the light, fickle breeze that can be here in summer, if you're mid-race like this and the wind drops and you don't have that ability to plug in the code 0 and get that extra horsepower, it can be a funny-looking race.
On a normal boat, Stephen, you'd throw up a bigger sail right now, you know, but it's just not possible on boats like this. But, I mean, it's a lot of people at home, I'm sure, are saying they got these bowsprits out there. They all own code 0s. Why aren't they using them? And several of the sailors have said that it's just a really, really narrow wind range. But Nathan, being off the foils is a worse scenario, I think.
These are the final stages of race 11 in the Prada America's Cup World Series. And right now you can be assured that American Magic will take the point, and it will all come down into the final race between the Italians and the New Zealanders.
Yeah.
Okay. 1,800 and some 40 meters is the advantage that American Magic have on Ineos Team UK. It could have been smaller after American Magic fell off her foils. And it was a tiny piece of drama, and they've had their share of drama in the last 24 hours, particularly when they almost tipped over. They tipped onto their side yesterday.
They all have their gremlins out there still right now. See the luff of that jib kind of tortured, like they have a lot of Cunningham on.
My wheel.
I'm always intrigued with this one word that is not my favorite word, but it seems to be something that you need to have in particularly this sport, is process. And little things, Kenny, every time you hear Dean Buck say, my wheel. I know that sounds really tiny, but you know it's part of the process for everybody.
For people watching this for the first time, I'm sure they're amazed that there's very few boats in the world that have any sort of communication systems at all. It's usually you're talking to your buddy on the bow and giving a little yell, you know? But these guys, their communication systems and how intricate they have to be at every single spot around the race course just to keep the boat flying and safe. That maybe safe is even a bigger word here. It's really something else. The communication systems are phenomenal.
American Magic, representing the New York Yacht Club, will win race number 11 of the Prada America's Cup World Series. And their points tally will have them tied, and it's going to come down to the last race. But Patriot gets the job done on Ineos Team UK as they glide across the finish line.
That's the look of, okay, we've had enough. Enough is enough. It's been a long day, and they had to turn it around so quick between the last race and this race. I'm sure they had, I believe they had 3 crew changes and quick turnaround. Very well done.
And now we wait and see what the advantage is, the time difference between their finish and that of Ineos Team UK.
Nathan, as soon as you finish that race, the first thing I think they're thinking about is that one tack against Emirates Team New Zealand. That's the difference between winning the regatta and losing the regatta right now for American Magic.
Absolutely. They sailed a very clean race except for one maneuver. And that was the same in the race before. And you know, winning and losing is all about being perfect the whole way around the track. And Ineos here once again still struggling. We know it's light. We know they're struggling in these conditions, and the big question's all going to be about.
I wonder what this orange little loop is that's been hanging off here all day long. I wonder what that is. Not supposed to be there. If we're looking for arrow, yeah, that has no arrow in it. I can guarantee you that.
So the boat's dead flat. So they're trying to take off with it, using that skeg to try and reduce wetted surface. They talk about the bustle on this boat. They've got the big wide hull. It comes in a step, and then it goes in one more time to the long skeg. So as they get higher and build speed, with wetted surface reduces and it comes up. But clearly, there is something fundamentally wrong going on here compared to American Magic, because in the same conditions, this boat's just not popping out of the water, and it's not
with a much bigger jib.
With a bigger jib, so it's got more sail area, but not getting the same amount of lift. And once you can get the hull free of the water, the drag just disappears, and then the boat's off. But you know, my gut feeling tells me those red things hanging out the end.
Lucky it might be.
These old things right here.
These old things we call the foils. not performing as expected in the lighter winds. I'm sure the team are probably just as surprised about this as we all are right now, although they might have known about this a bit earlier than we did. And you can modify those things. You can modify the foils. You can 20% you can change on the foils. So there's a good chance that they've already got some drawings. And
there's no bulb on this one, right? So essentially a little blunt nose right there. But these are quite wide. The span is quite wide here, fore and aft in the middle, and quite narrow at the end. They are slightly different shape than all the other teams, aren't they?
They are, exactly. So 20%, maybe that change will get them back into the race. They've got till January, really, before the next round of racing comes. You can see all the water coming out of there. All those holes, that's clearly they're hollow flaps, and inside there is mechanical adjustments with hydraulics and electronics that are adjusting the flap.
You see that water coming out? That was interesting.
It's full of water when they're sailing. Wonder if that's standard across all the teams or if it's just something we've just picked up there. But either way, they've didn't make the foiling take there once again, and it's kind of back to the drawing board for these guys right now, but you only do a 20% adjustment on those foils.
Going back at the drawing board at this stage, really, that's a head scratcher.
Well, in Bermuda, during the racing, people were changing their foils, modifying their foils several times. I remember when, pretty sure between the first round of the America's Cup and the second round, you know, they had a week off between Oracle, Team USA and Emirates Team New Zealand. They stripped that boat back. They got 100 kilos out of their boat and they changed the section shape on their foils.
Different foils, though.
Different foils, but
completely different foils.
Still possible.
But still, changing the shape, it's a big deal. That doesn't happen overnight, and it's kind of miracle work from some of these material engineers figuring out how to do it.
When we say 20%, it's 20% of the weight of the foil. So depending upon where they have the ballast in these foils, they could actually make a reasonable section shape change. They might be able to change the area slightly. Man, there's going to be some people scratching their heads.
There's the flaps, and the flaps, see, they're separated. There's one flap here and one flap here. And so those things, could they ever move independently of each other, or would they go at the same time?
I'm confident they move independently. I think all the teams have two flaps that move independently.
Shirley, I don't want to get down on Ineos Team UK because there's been a lot of talk about this well-funded campaign and a real chance of bringing the America's Cup back home for the very first time. What are you thinking right now?
30 seconds time. The course is 6.
Well, I mean, I spoke to them at the end of the practice racing, and, you know, they knew this week would potentially be painful. It would be difficult, but they have, you know, they've got some firm ideas about the changes they need to make over the next few weeks. But it's hard. I mean, Nathan's talking about, you know, changing the foils. They've used up their allocation of foils. You could build 6, and although you can modify them, they can't build any new ones. Although it takes, you know, 4 months to build them anyway. But they haven't got, you know, new foils coming in like some of the other teams. I don't know. You can change a lot in the America's Cup world. I mean, you've got a team of, you know, 140 people. They're some of the best smarts on the planet. You can make stuff happen really quickly, but I fully expect to see this boat in a few weeks' time looking a bit different. Maybe that dramatic skeg that may well have to go, and you know, they may well look at the sails and the software systems. As Kenny said, it's everything. It's never one kind of standout problem. It's, you know, this is sailing very much in 3D. They're going to be looking at every single area, but you know, I don't think I've seen Ben on, you know, on the back foot, you know, this early, ever. It's a big challenge.
So here's my recommendation. You just get your group and you shut the doors and you turn off all media and you hunker down. Don't read anything. Just, you have to bring the troops in like never before, because it's easy to get ugly in these spots, and these are, you know, these are professionals, but even professionals can get down, down, down. And when you get down, it can spread like wildfire. So they need to bring the troops in, shut the doors, turn off the televisions, and just get to work. And they, they got a few weeks here, and but they got a challenge ahead of them. There's no question.
Maybe it's one of those times where you say you hunker down, you just get down and boogie and let loose, and then get back on the job.
Is that a song, or did you just start to write a song in your own mind?
There is a song there.
There is? Wow.
Get down on it, that one, right?
Singing. This is how bad this has gotten, Nathan.
Not at all, not at all.
Sorry, guys, I just switched off.
Such an encouraging duo to work with as we see Emirates Team UK struggling majorly in race number 11. And that was quite revealing when Shirley said they've used their allocation of foils, a major component with this class.
Only 6 allowed through both of your boats. And by the way, Shirley, I've been told that people think that is the case. We don't also want to make up something that may not be true. Are you positive that they've gone through all 6?
Yes, yes. I've heard it from quite a lot of sources, and I think they have to be measured and all of that. So I think it's pretty much in the public domain. But 20% of a foil is a lot, and yeah, you're Ben. Tough one, boys. This is always going to be a difficult week for them. But I think they have a plan, Kenny. And I mean, I'm reminded, we're all reminded, aren't we, of San Francisco when Oracle were 8-1 down, and Russell Coates stood on a chair in the middle of a room and gathered all his, all those great people from that industry together, and they turned that around. And I think if you can make changes quickly, it is in this world. You've got all the resources to do it.
So just a quick apology too, because I think we may have heard Ben Ainsley with a slight expletive, so apologies to our international viewers about that, as the Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli supporters are in the Viaduct Harbour ready for this final showdown. They like light here at this particular point because they'll be getting ready for race number 12.
Yours, Andy, man? Yeah. Good angle.
20 seconds to start of race 12. It will be 6 legs. 6 legs of this course. It was shifted earlier today to a more northerly to catch the wind.
Big lefty, you heard them say. They might not even make this pin end of the starting line. I think Emirates Team New Zealand's bearing off, and they're going to attack and go behind. Here comes a dial down. Watch this. Jimmy Spithill's going to hunt right at him and not let them tap. There he goes. Back up and start the race. So well done by Spitthill there. That was so classic.
Can I keep saying it? Peter Burling is not in any way at all nailing any of these starts. He's putting himself in bad positions and letting the challengers just dominate him.
Does this come down to coming up against seasoned match racers?
It's more, maybe it's just more of a match race than they thought. You know, the other people on these other boats have a lot more, quote, match racing experience. Yes, this is a match race, and he won the America's Cup before in a match race. But this is a different animal. This is a little more like the match racing in the model hulls that we've seen in the past, especially in the pre-start.
Emirates Team New Zealand picking up some speed. They've found some wind.
Happy to start coming up.
So we've been talking all week about the speed of Emirates Team New Zealand, and they've been using boat speed to win races. You know,
starting to wind up now.
Not really dominating the starts, but their boat speed's quick, the manoeuvring's going very well, and it's an opportunity here now to see if that speed is real, or if Luna Rossa actually do have the speed and the light wind, which we suspect, and can keep control in this race.
But again, Nathan, this is it for them, right? They have one more day of actual competing against another AC75 before they go off on their own again. I remember in my match race days, you just go find another pair of boats and you match race and match race and match race and try to make it second nature. Peter Burling doesn't have that capability to do it. They have no second boat to go race against. And I'll tell you what, none of those challenges are going to help out the defender. Never do, never have, never will.
Showing 5 degrees lefty, but I think it's tacking with this a bit, so just go for pressure.
Yeah, reasonable pressure out this side of the court. Yeah. Boundary tag. Copy, boundary tag. Copy.
Going slowly forward on the field.
Let's just stay within here.
How's your balance? Sorry, Peter. How's your balance? You right? Just enough.
So let's just take a quick look back at the start.
20 seconds.
So Emirates Team New Zealand comes back early in a big left-hand shift and decide that they're going to have to tack. So what happened is Jimmy Spithill pointed the bow down at them. Watch this. Jimmy Spithill points the bow down at them to make sure that they can't tack right away and have a good start. And as soon as he comes up to ley line to the starboard end, he slowly comes up and rolls into attack. For a second reason is because when he comes out of the tack, he's going to be right on their air coming out of, you know, just textbook, perfect, textbook. Very vulnerable spot, sorry, Stephen, very vulnerable spot that Burling approached the starting line from, and that's what he has to improve, is get himself in more of a commanding position. That was both races today, very vulnerable coming back to the starting line.
It's a lot better now.
Okay, for the race, boys, pressure. Left, if it's safer, left.
Yeah, copy that, Gillo. I think we will try to do one and in, but no guarantee.
The voice of Francesco Bruni.
He's definitely two and in to the right, so we may even do that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Discussion of the geometry of the race course and how many maneuvers they're going to have to do.
Go for it.
Oh, isn't it so good when they just do our job for us, and it's so insightful. Let's just stay with this as long as we can.
Copy. Remember the little charge for the tack.
Yep.
Okay, good numbers here.
Back.
He's tack.
18 knots.
That is the top gate. And this is race 12.
So you notice they didn't tack on top of Emirates Team New Zealand because they're trying to do this in one maneuver and force Emirates Team New Zealand to do it in two. The only danger is the split.
Emirates Team New Zealand want this race win. They need this race win. 2 wins gives them the Prada America's Cup World Series.
Getting lighter.
Touchdown. Touchdown, Prada, is it?
No, they're okay, but it is getting lighter.
Okay, my truck, your truck.
Yeah,
Definitely more
That's the last feeling you want to have as a sailor. You're just so sticky there.
Did you hear Jimmy just say? So Jimmy Spithill is the driver on the starboard side. His head is, there he is. He said right after that tack, he's controlling the Traveller.
Still too slow.
I think has to take the Traveller in a straight line, and I think Pietro Sabello behind him is doing main sheet and controls. Cunningham,
But I think that knob right there, the
Traveller down.
motorcycle grip is Traveller. Yeah. Looks like they may not be laying either.
Stand by, okay, trimming up now.
So despite an almost touchdown, Nathan, the lead is comfortable at this point.
It's a one touchdown comfortable though. That's it, right?
Dean Barker found that out, and that was a one touchdown uncomfortable. That cost him the race.
That's a nice tack, just a little touch, and they're extending up this upward. Extending to 240 meters.
Left to go count to 15, 16. I think the main reason was too much pitch, okay? So we have to be very careful on the build.
Okay, guys, about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, round the gate first, the top gate, leg 1 of 6 completed. The lead sitting around 243 meters. How far behind are Emirates Team New Zealand?
By drive, boys. Wait.
Copy. A little more, back there. Coming down 3, 2, 1. Coming down
There's a touchdown, just pinching to get around the mark right there and getting super slow.
Yeah, they underlaid that top mark, and I think Pete said we just got to try it because the tack was going to be too much distance and it falling off the foils. And look at that, Luna Rossa Prada made that jibe. That's probably the most important part now, is that they can make the jibe stick and just get down the track where it seems to be windier at the bottom. They could be going. Shirley, you're on the water. How's it looking out there?
Well, you spotted it is getting, softer and softer all the time. We're right beside Emirates Team New Zealand. That was a hard call, wasn't it? I mean, I think we would all probably have done the same. He's just short of that mark and really paying the price. And all the time, Luna Rossa just extending away. To me, they look like they have slightly more power. They touch down, but it's not so costly as when the Kiwis are touching down. And currently, they're just sailing away.
Try and come up to it, Pete.
Interesting that Emirates Team New Zealand there, Nathan, decided to try not to build on port. We saw Ineos try to build near the side boundaries and actually get a penalty out there that time. So they just immediately jibe back, and they're trying to build toward the middle of the race course in a painful way, as you could see on the faces of Emirates Team New Zealand fans. It's not that bad, folks.
But it's not getting that much better at the moment, is it? Luna Rossa jibe,
and are they down?
Off the foils. So it's a takeoff competition now. Who can get the thing up and foiling again? Man, it's an 800-meter lead. And do you know how quickly that's going to disappear if Team New Zealand get up on the foils and come charging at them?
Give us a number.
I reckon they could have the lead in about 30 seconds if they got it up and going.
We will hold you to that.
Here we go. Here's the new light air profile that we're going to be analyzing. Who's a better displacement boat? None of these boats are built to be displacement boats. I can guarantee you that.
Everyone's parked out there at the moment. And, you know, the nerve-wracking thing is if you are in the lead right now, like Luna Rossa is, they're downwind. So when the breeze shuts down, generally the breeze comes back in, and it comes back in at the top of the course first. So highly likely that Team New Zealand will pick up that first bit of new pressure, get up on the foil, and they could easily go straight by.
You mean the breeze coming from behind, Nathan, like the old days with spinnakers, huh? All of a sudden, we're back. You're back with me.
Okay, here we go. Check out that boat speed. How often did your America's Cup boat do 15 knots?
We were pretty scared if we were doing 15 knots.
And we're saying they're hardly moving now. That's the difference. Team New Zealand trying to get takeoff here. They're doing 18 knots. This should be a takeoff here pretty easily, but they are very close to the boundary.
Standing by job. Yeah, I'm happy there.
Emirates Team New Zealand are back up on the foils. You can see the lead start to come down. On the left-hand side, Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli still stuck in the water.
He's the runner. Nice runner.
So how quickly is that lead going to come down? Yes, why wouldn't you be excited if you're a fan of Emirates Team New Zealand? Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli fans are a little bit nervous.
If they stick that jibe, they are going straight past Luna Rossa.
Luna Rossa's starting to build a little speed, though. Oh, my God, this is a whole new world.
I didn't put my stopwatch on.
So they are foiling, but they're doing 90 degrees to the wind, so they're not actually making any headway to the bottom mark at all. But all it takes is a little bit of pressure, apparent wind builds, and they slowly come away. And they're going to be down there. Let's count it down, okay? 30 seconds from now.
So they're doing the same thing. Luna Rossa is saying, if we start foiling, we're going to be too close to the boundary, so let's try to get on the wide part of the track and start all over again.
20 seconds there.
Yeah, copy.
Goodness gracious me.
Lead's coming down. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli struggling to get up in the foils. And look at that. Coming in hunting. Emirates Team New Zealand.
They stick this, they take the lead.
Well, they're also just looking at pups in the water. It's almost like you're ignoring the other boat at this stage. You're just trying to stay with pressure.
Oh, here they come. Here they come.
Some nervous faces.
I'm getting texts right now from my buddies who sell moths who are just saying to me, this looks like a moth race. You know, you might be first to the top mark, but if you fall off those foils, guys behind you pick up the foil and they are off.
So from 800 metres at least, the lead at Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. Look at that lead wind down. Emirates Team New Zealand take the lead in race 12. It's a race they need to win to secure the Prada America's Cup World Series. But this is only the second leg of 6. There is so much more to unfold.
Oh, this is far from over. Shirley, on the water to you, what do you see in terms of wind strength and pressure out there? See from the helicopter angles here, it does look a bit puffy out there. Kenny, breeze came from behind and off they go.
It goes back to having a playbook for every single scenario. I'm so impressed that they jibed at the weather. After going through that weather gate, they jibed and used the long part of the race course. Here we go, they're back up again. But they used the long part of the race course to build rather than take a chance of just building and having to jibe right away, right at the boundary. That was really smart.
Exactly, and it looked like they needed almost the entire width of the course to build the speed to get on the foil, and then they did a jibe on that boundary super close and made it stick, and that's what got them the lead.
Oh, see, they jibed up there in the upper corner, and then they used the entire race course to try to build off of it. And gone. As soon as they get on the foils, gone. Nathan called that one. If they get up, they're going to be ahead, and guess what? That's why he's the best in the business.
It is, but I think it was over 30 seconds, and he called 30 seconds, so we'll hold him to that. But what an impressive moment for Emirates Team New Zealand, from being 700-odd metres behind to now 400-odd metres in front.
A lot of race to go here, fellas, and as we learned, easy to come off the foils on both boats. A lot of sailboat race to go.
Good chance of some non-foiling action coming in the next 2 laps, so stand by for more overtaking
How far?
Who said this wasn't exciting? Even when they're sitting in the water, trying to get up on the foils.
Another 10 past me.
Third or more puff just above us here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Keep the pace on. Keep the pace on.
Yeah. Pacing up a little bit here.
Yeah. Give it another 5. Down. Yeah, boundary drive. Copy.
Very slowly going left.
Yeah. Happy anytime.
Very blue. Fine. Turning.
Making sure they do this at 1, Nathan. They're going way beyond the ley line just to make sure they're not taking any chance.
Yeah, all good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the light air, you definitely want to overlay those bottom marks, come in with speed as opposed to be going early and having to do another job. Team effort to jibe that boat, isn't it? Look at them all talking to each other.
Yeah, I think straight through, surely. Yeah, nice
Great job, great job. We are posting a course change. You will finish after leg 4 at the leeward gate.
There you go, Stephen. Finishing after leg 4 at the leeward gate, which means up and down. That's it. 2 more legs for both boats.
So confirmation, this is 50% of the race done. It started out as a 6-leg race. It'll now be a 4-leg race. And Emirates Team New Zealand.
Italy, you have a boundary penalty. You need to slow.
Italy had a boundary penalty up there, and it kind of had the look of a professional boundary penalty.
I was waiting for you to go to that.
Yeah. So the thing is there, Stephen, is they didn't want to jibe and not make this skate. So, gee, sorry, our problem. We went outside the boundaries, and we'll slow down a little bit, but at least they're not going to have to do another jibe, do a little zigzag here.
You can see exactly, they went out of bounds right where that red line intersected the boundary, and it's a tough call. Either you jibe inside the boundary and are forced to do another jibe, or you go out and you get nailed by the umpires, and he'll keep slowing you down until he thinks that you've done the right job and cleared it, which Richard Slater's now wiped the penalty. You could see that Luna Rossa were doing a few wiggles, trying to slow down, so they were. You want to clear the penalty slowly. You don't want to clear it straight away and fall off the foils. But Team New Zealand there, I don't know if they made that foiling tack in the distance, and I think lead is slowly shrinking now.
So this is the penultimate leg in race number 12.
Here's that penalty, that out of bounds penalty. Yeah, they went a fair chunk out of bounds just to make sure. There's the ley line, so
just
they got
enough to lay the bottom marks.
Yeah, what a shock. Stunner.
Jimmy's never done that before.
Stephen, it's all change again. I hope you can hear me. Emirates Team New Zealand off the foils. A bad tack is all on.
Thank you, Shirley.
Spot on, Shirley. Look at that lead. It's come down again. Race on. Emirates Team New Zealand with a marginal lead on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
So I guess you've got to think about, are we going boundary to boundary and minimising the number of tacks because they're the risk areas, or are you just tacking when you feel like you've got the best speed or the most amount of pressure?
What a Saturday afternoon of racing we have had. And what is most noticeable, you make one small error and it is going to cost you.
The irony is we were watching the penalty of Luna Rossa. We were watching it on replay, and Team New Zealand made their error then. They're going to be tacking to starboard. What do you think, Nathan? Do they have a piece of them, or is that a clear cross?
I think they have a piece, tacking onto starboard, right away the whole way here, and it's about tack execution now.
Turning now, Pete, go down.
So attacked by Luna Rossa, and Emirates Team New Zealand tacked, essentially got across and tacked just up to weather. So they did cross, but oh, are they close to being off the foils again?
It's a true test of who's got the best performing light wind foils right now, isn't it? Who can keep it foiling and hang on. We'll just go on board and listen. It sounds pretty intense on board with Glenn Ashley's voice of Team New Zealand.
Whatever you like, then. Coming up on the breeze now. Copy. good on the bow, eh?
That's the voice of the Kiwis right now, communicating about puffs.
Where do we want to approach top left? I think we just need to get way wider out of these tacks, guys. Make sure we get down to like 90 if we're struggling. That one was about 60.
Peter Burling saying basically go back where you came from in these tacks. Anything you can do to keep the boat on the foil.
Yeah.
90 means 90-degree true wind angle, essentially sideways to the...
My right, my left, good tack, guys.
Francesco Bruni saying he's happy with that tack, and we saw on their stern camera Emirates Team New Zealand made the tack as well. The distance is still close, 90 metres. Speed similar, maybe a little faster to Team New Zealand right now.
Only one more leg after this, four-leg course.
How good is this racing
This is exciting for you non-sailors, Stephen. I see the excitement, and you're on. This is a good sign. This is good.
I love what I'm loving is how quickly Emirates Team New Zealand got back up on the boards, but how quickly Luna Rossa Prada really have come back into this game, because this just quickly.
Why are they not tacking? What's going on here? Luna Rossa have got a split. This could be a big moment in this race. Sorry to interrupt there. That just, to me, was like, you stay with him if you're winning. You don't give him this opportunity, and maybe they just think they can get to ley line, they can avoid attack, or maybe there's more pressure. But if Pete Burling gets this wrong, might have given it away.
I think they're more nervous about staying on the foils, so they're just trying to minimize maneuvers. But now they got to hit a ley line here at the same time.
Just a reminder, if Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli can snatch this one back and win race 12, we are tied between Luna Rossa, American Magic, and Emirates Team New Zealand. And I've just been informed the winner of the Prada's America's Cup World Series will be drawn at the press conference tonight. Just letting you know.
Welcome to the America's Cup. That's a new one. Because it's an unbreakable tie.
Unbreakable tie.
Yeah, between the three boats. Usually you do who beat who last, but each of them, because it's an odd number, each of them would have exactly the same numbers. I mean, can't make this stuff up. Only in the America's Cup.
It's not just tense on the water, it's tense on the deck as well, on the shore at the race village.
They're split again.
That distance has come down. That lead's shrunk down pretty quickly too. It was 90.
Now remember, top right was soft on the first downwind. Well, that's where they all fell off the foils, and that's where Luna Rossa is heading right now. Shirley on the water, is there any obvious side that's got more pressure?
Okay, good, guys. Happy.
No, I mean, I think sailors all around the world will recognise this scenario. You know, when you go out for your evening race, you've been looking at great conditions all day, and this is what you get. I mean, it was not a strong thermal, and it's very much dying away. Just really, you got to look for the puff, just sailing what you've got, and I think, you know, Kenny's right. You just got to tack when you're feeling most comfortable and you've got a bit of pressure.
Stand by. 3, 2,
approaching the top gate for the final time. Who has the advantage? Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli with a lead of 64 metres on Emirates Team New Zealand. It's going to be close at the top gate.
Crossing by 3. Okay, we're going right. I've been going right. Fairly drive, yes, indeed. Good angle, 5 away. 3.
But it will be Emirates Team New Zealand to get the gate first and head on down towards the finish. But we're not done with yet.
I'm surprised they had. It seemed like they made that decision to go around the right-hand gate really late. From a communication standpoint, it's kind of unlike the Kiwis sometimes.
I think what they were trying to say is we want to go right because it avoids the tack, but if we don't cross, we'll need to tack. And so Glenn was to leeward, constantly giving the updates on relatives, and it was marginal cross, and then Luna Rossa didn't accelerate really well out of their tack, and it became a very easy decision at the end. But a lot of chat on board, isn't it?
18 seconds the difference. That's all the lead was at the final gate as they head towards the finish in this last race of the Prada America's Cup World Series. We remind you again, a win by Prada, it goes to a three-way tie draw at the press conference. A win by Emirates Team New Zealand, and the champagne will be popped, and they'll get top seating for tomorrow's Christmas race.
Everybody's got the same opinion. No, don't let them splash. Oh, they got back up.
Sigh of relief. Leave to fight another jibe.
Exactly. There you go.
Got to stick with those in those maneuvers. You're giving us a heart attack.
Still 5 or 10 left of normal. Copy.
Emirates Team New Zealand flying towards the finish. The lead slowly extending on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, sitting at over 200 meters now. But get one thing minutely wrong, and that can change in the blink of an eye.
Lifting a little bit here.
Must be up just a click in terms of pressure right now, because both boats are foiling and making their jibes downwind.
It's good, but not any higher, Pedro.
Probably two, maybe one jibe left for both boats. So New Zealand, anyway, they lose this now as if they fall off the foils in a jibe.
Sorry, I'm a bit late on.
Well, they've done it before.
Not the best job. You hear go oof.
Pete said I went a little bit late on the board down, managed to catch it and just drive it down using the battery-powered hydraulics, and Luna Rossa made the jibe too. It's both looked like they had a tough jibe.
Yeah, they both were. They were pointing at each other after the jibes.
So you can see Emirates Team New Zealand, if they continue straight, they're going to reach that red line before they get to the boundary. So pretty obvious right now that they'll get there in one. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, probably similar setup on the other side. So one jibe apiece to go. 250-meter lead coming down here. Going to be big change for Luna Rossa to take the lead here.
To think on the first leg, they were beached, literally beached. And now we've got this. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli had that very good lead. And then suddenly, Peter Burling and Emirates Team New Zealand found the wind, used all of the courses you said, Kenny, and got their boat up on those foils.
We're all learning. You know, we're learning as commentators. The sailing world is learning what this is all about. We see this threshold of this very light air, and this is going to become a major talking point for every one of these teams.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
So jibing on the ley line, if they get this ley line and nail the jibe, coming into the finish on starboard tack with full right of way as well. Looked like a very smooth jibe by the boys. Should be happy with that one.
Very happy with that one.
Yeah.
Lead's coming down, it's growing again. That number is elusive, isn't it?
That one last jibe by Emirates Team New Zealand, in my mind, kind of made it.
How close it has been, but what a way to finish the Prada America's Cup World Series. Emirates Team New Zealand cross the line and win the World Series against Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli and take top seating for the Christmas race tomorrow.
Now just carry on straight. Just we'll foil out this way a little bit. I'm sure that's it.
Keep racing here. I don't know. Gillo is staying there.
It's fantastic. Great racing in this light air even. If it can be exciting in light air like this, we got a real class and a real boat and a real event. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Ken, I think both teams would be happy with that result.
Confirmation, race 12. Emirates Team New Zealand with a 16-second win over Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. And there is your confirmation. Emirates Team New Zealand win the Prada America's Cup World Series. They go 2 from 2 today, and they do it in style.